Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is how to be an ally, especially with what's going on in our political and social climate. It can be really easy to want to help someone by giving them all the answers, but it's really important to share power. While it might give you an ego boost to know all the answers and tell people what to do, sometimes it doesn't end up helping the person the way you want it to, and could even end up damaging your relationship with that person. So this idea that being an ally means coming alongside somebody, being with them as they make decisions. When you talk to somebody, you're wanting to be listened and validated, and you want to talk things through so that you feel heard, and you can even start learning and maybe even thinking about what you need to do for yourself inside of that conversation. I've learned that allowing folks to talk around the issue helps them to develop their own solutions. So playing the expert can feel really good to us, but the person being supported can feel overwhelmed, disempowered, and even upset that you're trying to give them all the answers. Being an ally is about being equal, and sometimes being an advocate. But when you step into that role, you really want to make sure you ask first if the person even really wants that in the first place. Coming alongside someone supports their decision-making and agency, as well as can protect your relationship, as I said earlier. Dave, any thoughts as I'm chatting about this with you?
Sure. It really dovetails with a lot of the stuff we've already talked about. One of the previous ones we had was unconditional positive regard. It's very related to that. The most important thing that's coming to mind for me is how can I make it not about me? How can I get my ego out of it? And how can I be there to support them? We want to bring ourselves, we want to bring our personalities to every interaction, but we want to give space to the other person. Like if we're trying to help that person, they get to take up most of the space and they get to decide where the conversation goes and what they talk about. That's what being an ally is. Not having an agenda about where things go or what outcomes need to come out of that conversation. The biggest mistake I've made and I've seen other people make is that I know best. If you just did this, or you need to think about things this way, or you need to feel differently about this thing, or you need to get into this program and start doing these exercises or take this drug. We have this idea for how the other person should behave in the world. But if that person isn't signed up for it, that is going to create conflict. That's going to create distance. They're going to start shutting down. And you're going to have to try to repair that. If you go down that path and you do damage, you're going to have to repair that damage before that trust can even be rebuilt. The key concept here is it's not about you. When you're supporting someone, it's not about you. How do you get yourself out of that mentality of wanting to be the hero, be the savior, be the person who knows best? This is a problem I see with the current system we have. People get training on how to be a therapist or a psychologist, and they go through all this education and they go through all this training and they have 1,000, 2,000 hours of clinical supervised work, and then you get anointed. You are a licensed therapist. And the problem with that is then this person is like, oh, I'm an expert now. I know best. And that can get in the way of just being a good, supportive human being because you think you know best. The world has told you you know best. And this person sitting across from you, they've got problems and I've got solutions. This whole podcast is about agency. And when you take away someone's agency, they're not going to get better. And they're just going to shut down. It's not good for anyone.
That was well said. When I was younger, starting about the age of 27, I was working in the deep end of the pool in mental health, right? I was working on crisis youth mental health teams. I was working in people's homes as a very young person. And it felt really good to give a lot of advice. I was well-intentioned, modeling what I saw within this clinical system of telling people what to do. But I really wondered sometimes, being relatively new and just feeling in my gut, like, is this the right approach? Does this approach resonate with me? Is it working? I would see people shut down, young people, families, parents. I wasn't doing this all the time, but when I would get into that dictatorial top-down approach, they would sort of run away from me or be like, I think you're nice, but it's time to go. It wasn't until I started really going into communities, really going into people's homes. I remember this one family distinctly. There was this very strong set of parents who, they liked me. We had a good relationship in the sense of how we worked together and supporting their young person. But they were very clear, you really have to be careful with telling people what to do. And I didn't really see exactly how I was doing that until they were just very clear, nice, and firm. It's really a lot more helpful for us when you let us talk about what's going on, you go back and forth with us, and then together we're starting to come up with some solutions, or we're starting to think about what's going on. And inside of that conversation, it's like, light bulb, this is what's happening. This is maybe a better solution. I kind of learned inside of that, offering little prompts. And it really struck a chord with me when they did that. I felt like it was this huge gift. And slowly over time, I started working with that idea of listening more. I came up with this very informal rule of 70, 20, 10. That means 70% of the time, I'm just listening, nodding, nonverbal. 20% of the time is validation or open-ended questions. Oh, wow, I really hear you. I can see how that might be the case. Or asking something like, how did that make you feel? An open-ended question, trying to continue the conversation and not close it down. And then just that 10% of the time, suggesting something or offering advice, and often only doing that by asking first, like, do you mind if I share something? Do you mind if I offer something to this conversation? And if they say no, that's okay. And really just trying to get out of the conversation, maybe one or two bits of advice, and maybe just one takeaway or next step. That was something that I honed in on and learned working in community. And when I started doing that, I began to notice less resistance. Sometimes people came to their own solutions, and I felt a lot less strained after that. Still a lot of work, but it didn't feel like as much of a struggle. It's all about that power sharing and opening that space for mutuality. That really shifted something for me in the ally approach.
It's a common journey for people in supportive roles. Yeah. Peer support has come a long way. You were really a trailblazer in the peer support space. They didn't really have the structure or the history to know what it looks like to be a good peer support specialist and to train them properly. You had on-the-job training and you learned from your mistakes. You were humble enough to be able to hear that feedback, not shrink, not get defensive, to be able to take that in, to make some shifts. I appreciate you sharing. I think the most valuable stories that we can share here are the ones where we screwed up. Here's what we learned. It's not comfortable to share these stories about how I screwed up in the world or I could have done better. It's easy to push that aside and we won't talk about that. But I think it's valuable for people to see that, to see that other people have gone before you, the viewer, and have made these mistakes, and hopefully you can learn from us. Maybe you don't have to make the same mistakes, or you don't have to make as severe mistakes. So I appreciate you sharing that. There were people in your life, in the community, who were gently telling you, okay, you're doing this thing, and you're trying to be helpful. It's so easy to say, well, I'm just trying to help. I get that. You're just trying to help. But actually, help could be more harmful than doing nothing.
There's this movie called Nanny McPhee. It's a Disney movie, and basically the way she comes in is says, when you don't want me, that's when you need me. And then when you want me, that's when you don't need me. You're not trying to build in the need. I learned that after years of being in the field. I'm here when you don't want me. And then once you want me, you don't need me anymore. And it's on you. You don't want to develop that dependency or that I'm here to fix anything. I'm just here to give you the seeds for you to continue that on your own. But that does work into this idea of being an ally, right? It's that positionality. Like you said it earlier, the savior complex. That's something that feels really good. And almost kind of leads me into my next point, really checking in with yourself before going into these kind of conversations or even before you get into this work. Am I grounded? Am I healed or am I healing? Am I aware of my own journey? Because peer support's all about lived experience, right? And this idea of we're healing from something, we've been through a journey, we're recovering from something, and we want to offer our lived experience, what we've learned to help others. But sometimes that can be really tricky. Am I anxious about something? Am I exhausted? Am I in need somehow? Is there something going on with me that I'm bringing to the table? Is this causing bias? Or am I caring too much? Or am I caring too little? Oftentimes when I was doing the work one-to-one deeply in community, 10 hours a day, I really had to check in with myself quite frequently. So before I'd go into these conversations, I'd have to feel like, is there stuff going on for me before I step in? Or is there stuff going on in my personal life? Did I drink a few too many beers the last night? Is everything okay with my family? And I had to learn to put that to the side. So I was really clear and present for the person I was in front of. Being in that position of control or power, not being an ally, but being more dictatorial or being more hierarchical, kind of protects us and it feels good. And it gives us this illusion that we're safe. But it shuts other people down or it pushes them away or it can frustrate them. So that's why I like that rule of 3, that 70, 20, 10, because it's something to fall back on. Maybe you're in the middle of a meeting or you're in the middle of a moment, you get a text and all of a sudden, ooh, you're flooded. You start wanting to take control or stepping out of the ally role and making yourself feel safe. I would often go back to, okay, just listen, allow myself to process and then reflect a little, ask some open-ended questions, validate. And then before I offered anything, ask first.
In one of our recent episodes, I talked about clearing the decks of your own issues, getting your ego out of it. Every time I have a coaching client or a peer that I'm supporting, if I'm approaching a meeting that I'm going to be the support person, I always schedule at least 5 minutes, a little bit of time before, to just do a quick meditation, check in with myself. Maybe I do need to get a drink. Maybe I need to grab a little snack. Maybe there's some pain. Maybe I need to take a Tylenol. These little things. But we get so caught up in our heads, my task list and my calendar, and here's the next thing to do and the next thing to do. And you're not checking in with your body, but you don't realize that your body is essentially sending you these signals that you're not in a good state. And that leaks out. If you don't address it, if you don't take a moment to check in with yourself to see, oh, is there something going on here that I might need to attend to before this session? Maybe I need to even delay this session if it's big enough. I just got some big news today about a medical thing, or someone in my family is struggling with this thing, and I'm going to be distracted. I always take that moment, and I would encourage everyone who is ever going to show up in a supportive role to just take a moment to check in with yourself and attend to anything that's going on. Maybe you just need to stretch and shake things out. Maybe you just need to get up and get a couple breaths of fresh air, step outside the door and look at some trees and look at the sky and take some deep breaths. For me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, your autonomic nervous system can just settle in and you can be more there to be supportive. How do you find that Goldilocks zone? How can you be not too supportive, but also not supportive enough? A lot of things in life are finding that Goldilocks zone. And the hardest thing is it's different for everyone. It's different for you on different days. It shifts all the time. So you have to also be a little bit aware of where are you and how hard are you pushing and what's going on with them. And okay, maybe I need to back off a little bit because I'm going too far here. You have to be really attentive to these things. You can't just have a script that you're going to go in and read to this person in this moment because things are shifting. They're going to show up in a way you can't predict. You don't know how they're going to show up. Maybe they're coming in hot because they got some news. And whatever things you thought you were going to talk about are thrown out the window because you've got to attend to this thing that's present for them. So just being open to that and being open to where is that support and how much am I pushing versus how much am I sort of backing off. This is like every skill in the world. It's hard. You're going to not do it skillfully at first. You're going to mess up. You're going to be embarrassed. That's okay. This is what learning is about. I'm sure you can tell me dozens of stories about you in the early days where maybe not even in the moment where you walk away and think, God, I just nailed it. And then in retrospect, you're like, wow, I was just completely imposing my will.
Usually in the middle of the night. It's really elaborating on how you be a good ally, right? You're aware of that flow state, like you're saying, and that's a real thing. It's really important that you're listening, right? I can't reaffirm that enough. Like that's 70% of this idea of 70-20-10. Big part of listening is I think we get into this urgent feeling of like we need to share something or we're not doing a good job if we're not ping-ponging, ping-pong, ping-pong. You know, they're sharing, I'm sharing, they're sharing, I'm sharing. And as a helper, it's not a conversation with a friend, right? You're a supporter. So you're there to listen. Waiting until someone's done sharing is really hard for people. When you're with your friend, a family member, people interrupt each other all the time. It's a natural state of being. We get excited. We know what each other are thinking. When you're supporting someone and they're sharing with you about something big, it really is your job, your role, if you're in that flow state, to really listen until they're done sharing. And sometimes that takes a long time. Sometimes I've seen that happen over weeks where someone is just needing to share. And I'm doing a lot of validating. I'm doing a lot of open-ended questions, but I can just feel that they're not done sharing. It's not the time yet for me to offer the tough advice. This idea of allyship is coming alongside someone, right? And helping them see themselves in this situation. So that can take time. It might not happen in an hour. It might not happen in 3 or 4 hours. You're building that trust. You're opening up the situation. You're allowing them to have the thought process and get to where they need to be. And then when they're ready, you can kind of assert your point of view. Maybe not assert is the right word, but you're bringing it to the table. And then they're able to really, at that time, when they're ready, hear you and start to think about taking action on what you're saying. Because when you do a lot of listening, I think that person eventually, once you offer that advice, if they're aware and have some self-awareness, realize, wow, this person's done a lot of listening. They've done a lot of validating. They might have been thinking about this advice for a long time. This isn't just, let's try to get this done. We got so much time here. Let's go. You've really put some effort and intention into the space. And now you're offering something because you really want to see them heal. You really want to see them move forward.
I have a little mantra. Sometimes it's good to have these to remind myself, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. Just remind myself in this conversation, when you're having a supportive conversation, it can feel like a very familiar conversation, like friendship, but it's not. You got to remind yourself that it's not. It's different and you need to show up differently. The hardest thing, I think, for me to learn in my coaching was because I'm a smart guy, I'm a problem solver, I've got answers. I want to jump in and I want to like show them how smart I am. I am 2 steps ahead of you and I can predict what you're going to say. And I can I not only predict what you're going to say, but I can also predict what the answer is. That is not a supportive conversation. The supportive conversation is to be patient. And it's so hard to be patient. Like you said, be patient to talk. And even when they stop talking, have that pause, that silence. It's hard. This is the hardest thing you'll ever do in a supportive conversation, is to let them finish talking and not immediately jump in and say something. It's a very skillful thing to do, is just give them a moment or two and just let it sink in. They're going to know that you're listening. If you're attentive, if you're nodding your head, if you're making eye contact, don't be afraid that you have to say, and then what? You don't have to keep doing that. And you don't have to jump in to show them, because more times than not, you'd be surprised they finish a thought and you give them a second or 2 or 3 and they might want to fill the silence. They're like, you know what I just said there isn't the whole truth, because they might shift it. How are things with your family? Oh, it's kind of the same old thing. And my dad's this way, and my mom, blah, blah, blah. And then you just give them, and then they're like, and then they go deeper.
I think you're nailing it. This is why I enjoy talking with you, Dave, about these subjects, because we have really different experiences and how we support people, but the truth resonates in between, right? When you're sharing that, I think about another lesson I learned early on, and I kind of saw with other people, because I don't tend to be a long talker. I tend to be a short talker, and I tend to like to listen. But I have learned that it's really important to keep advice when you have it, that 10%, try to really keep it short and sweet. And if you don't know, if you're out of your depth, which I often found myself working in community out of my depth, name it. When I would work with gang impacted or gang affiliated young people, I'd have to be really upfront. I've never been in that space. I honestly earned a lot of credibility, or if it was certain trauma or certain backgrounds, just very carefully, I'd say, I've never experienced that. But can I offer some advice from the place that I'm coming from, and trying to keep it as short and as sweet as possible, even if I really did know something. Like you were saying, you're a really smart guy. I like to think I have a few brain cells rattling in around there too. And sometimes I want to come to the answer. I think I know the answer. This idea of keeping it short and sweet, I think helps people realize it's like you know what you're talking about a little more, but you're also just trying to offer it in a way that's very digestible. Here, I just want to give this to you just because I think it'll help. And again, that's that allyship idea, this coming alongside somebody. If they're not ready, then they're not ready. Sometimes you have to step back and let people make their choices, even if they seem pretty dire, even if they seem pretty critical. And being an ally can be difficult sometimes, right? In general, being an ally means offering the advice and then stepping back and letting that person, through their own volition, through their own thought process, find that solution or take that idea you give them and use it in a way that's helpful for them.
That 10% of advice, bringing up advice in a way that empowers them to say yes or no to it. Whether it's offering, hey, I've got some ideas. Are you open to hearing them? Other people I've talked to have done X, Y, or Z. Maybe that's an option for you. There was a term from my crisis counseling training that sticks with me. I'd never heard it before. It's called tentifiers. It essentially comes from the word tentative. You're using language that is very wishy-washy. And in this case, it's a good thing. You don't want to use absolute language when you're giving advice. Obviously, you should do this. Or if you want to get better, this is the thing to do. Those things can be very disempowering. Maybe it is the right thing for them, but this is the first time they're hearing it and they're resistant to it. And sometimes people need to hear things dozens of times or even continue to make mistakes before they're like, oh, maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
So wherever they are, just being tentative about it, that allows them to meet that idea wherever they are on the journey. So they can just completely reject it. No, that's not for me.
Yeah.
That's another thing. When they completely reject something that you offer, even if you think it's right for them, how can you be okay with that? How can you just let that go and move on to something else? Okay, well, what do you think is the next thing for you then? Your job isn't to push back on that and to say, no, have you really thought about that? I'm really saying this is important. Why are you pushing back? That just creates distance. Just being very tentative with that 10% of advice and being okay if they push back, being okay if they're not open for that. Your job is to put it out there. There's this concept in support, let go of the outcome. All you can do is control what you're putting out there. You can't control how they're going to take it, and you have to let go of how they take it.
It's really valuable and really important. Bringing this all together, thinking about people who've sought support from professionals, clinicians, psychiatrists, folks who are really well trained in this more hierarchical way of doing things. Again, sometimes that's really needed and some people appreciate that approach, but I like that idea of being more tentative, and it's something I've naturally do. It gives people that agency, that ability to think, well, I could or could not do that, but it's in my court to do it. When I'm with people, being really upfront, I don't know all the answers. I'm a human being just like you. You're trusting me to come talk to me about something really big and important. I want you to know you're heard, you're validated. I care about you in the context of our relationship, and I'm here to support you. And I want to be a good ally. I want to be a good supporter of you. And so that coming alongside is almost like a vibe. It's a feeling. When people come to you in that moment of need, this idea of being tentative, even in crisis situations, that's something that resonates with my experience. I worked in crisis youth mental health on on-call teams for years. And I found the more energy you put into the situation, you fuel the fire and it tend to really explode. If you came in and you said, I'm really worried, could we try just to sit down for a little bit and drink a little water? You might still get that resistance, but you're not pushing, you're not accelerating, you're not throwing that gas into that fire situation. And in a way, you're modeling and you're giving the energy you want that person to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We're social creatures, and it's sort of the monkey see, monkey do. We feed off of other people's energy. If you can meet them and be like, I see that you're really upset about this thing, but you can also be sort of like settling in, they will pick up on that. They'll start to mirror that. They can settle down as you settle down. Like you were saying, if you're amped up, they're going to stay amped up. How can you validate other people, but also just be grounded? Sometimes it's literally just keeping my feet on the ground and feeling that, trying to project that energy out there. It sounds, you use the word woo-woo, it sounds woo-woo, like, oh, you're putting energy out there. We don't know all the little subtle details that we're picking up on, and they don't either. It's just that, oh, well, this person seems calm, and so I'm just gonna calm down too.
That was kind of my superpower working in community. People are like, you're so calm. It's a demonstration, right? It's a modeling. Just some final thoughts to close this out. This idea of being an ally is really about sharing power, giving that other person, like you're saying, this vibe, this feeling, but also letting them think for themselves, no matter what's going on with them. There's really different ways to be an ally. You can be an ally in the context of somebody's identity. You can be an ally in maybe a moment of crisis or need or just regular everyday conversation about things that are difficult. We definitely want you to take this idea of allyship, do your research, see how it might fit into your life. Here I am trying to be an ally, not trying to tell you what to do and using that tentative language. And of course, if you have other ideas, agree, disagree, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. We're excited for that kind of conversation. I just want to leave you with a little quote before we close out. When someone is going through a storm, your silent presence is more powerful than a million empty words. That was said by a writer named Thema Davis. So there's resources in the description. If you want to support us, please feel free to share this with others. We would really love that. As always, our goal is for everyone in the world to live a happy and healthy life, and that starts with you.
See you next time.